Am I the first recent lefty to... Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt O'Malley. I'm the Council President Pro Tempore. Today is June 19th, 2021, and we are calling to order the Boston City Council meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll to ascertain the presence of a quorum? I'm sorry, June 9th. I apologize. Thank you. Present. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I know Councilor Mejia will be joining us a little bit later this meeting. We're now going to move on to our invocation. Councilor Arroyo will introduce our clergy member today. After the invocation is delivered, Councilor Arroyo will lead us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation is from Pastor Matthew Thompson from Jubilee Christian Church, who is joining us via Zoom. Councilor Arroyo, would you like to introduce our distinguished clergy?
Certainly. Pastor Matthew Thompson has been a pastor for over 20 years with his wife, Mona Thompson, in my district at the Jubilee Christian Church. They're fantastic community advocates. They do a lot of good work, and I'm honored to have him here today to speak to the council and to essentially Christ in this meeting at the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. And welcome, Pastor Thompson. It's great to be with you. The floor is now yours. We may be having some technical difficulties. Stand by, please, Pastor Thompson. Let me see if we can get that TV turned on. Council will recess for 1 minute. The Boston City Council is back in session. For those viewing, I apologize. We were having a little technical difficulty. I believe that we lost our pastor who was going to deliver an invocation remotely. So before we recite before Councilor Arroyo leads us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd just like all councilors and all those in the chamber today to just take a moment of silence and before we kick things off and pray to or give some thoughts. Thank you. All right. Thank you all. Councilor Arroyo, would you like to, if those who are able, to please stand while Councilor Arroyo leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We are now on to the first order of business, which is the approval of the minutes. Seeing and hearing no discussion on the matter, the chair moves to approve the minutes from the last meeting as presented. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, please indicate by saying aye. 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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The minutes are hereby approved. Moving right along to communications from Her Honor the Mayor. Madam Clerk, would you please read docket 0725?
Thank you. Docket 0725, message and order approving an increase in the cost of living adjustment known as COLA base from $14,000 to $15,000 for all retirees and beneficiaries of the Boston Retirement System.
Docket 0725 shall be referred to the Committee on Government Operations. Madam Clerk, would you please amend the attendance report to indicate that Councilor Mejia has joined us?
Certainly.
Oh, I'm sorry, and the chair now recognizes the district councilor from Beacon Hill, Councilor Bach. The floor is yours.
Motion for reconsideration. I would ask that docket be referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. I think it's related to an increase that's going to have a direct bearing on the budget.
Okay, are you okay with that, Madam Chair? Okay. So, Madam Clerk, there's a motion before the body for reconsideration. Seeing no objection to the motion of reconsideration, I hereby assign docket 0725 to the Committee on Ways and Means. Madam Clerk, would you please read docket 0726?
Thank you. Docket 0726, message and order for your approval to declare surplus this city-owned former Commonwealth of Massachusetts parcel and transfer the care, custody, management, and control of said property to the Public Facilities Commission located at Melina Cass Boulevard in the Roxbury District, Ward 9, parcel 0196810.
Thank you. Docket 0726 will be referred to the Committee on Planning, Development, and Transportation. Madam Clerk, would you please read dockets 027 through 029?
Thank you. Docket 0727, message and order for confirmation of the renewal appointments of constables authorized to serve civil process upon the filing of their bonds for the period commencing May 1st, 2021 and ending April 30th, 2024. Docket number 0728, message and order for the confirmation of the appointment of new constables authorized to serve civil process upon the filing of their bonds for the period commencing May 1st, 2021 and ending April 30th, 2024. Docket number 0729, message and order for confirmation of the appointment of renewal of inspectional service constables authorized to serve civil process upon the filing of their bonds for the period commencing May 1st, 2021 and ending April 30th, 2024.
And I will just double check with the chair of the Committee on Public Safety. We were going to suspend the rules, Councillor Campbell, and pass these. Just wanted to make sure you're good with that. These are the constable appointments. I'm sorry. We were going to suspend and pass these. Correct. Thank you very much. Chair moves seeks suspension of the rules and confirmation, rather, of docket 0727 through 0729. And we will have to vote on these separately, but we will do it as a voice vote. So for docket 0727, all those in favor of confirmation, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0727 has passed. For docket 0728, all those in favor of confirmation, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The docket has passed. For docket 0729, all those in favor of confirmation, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The docket has passed. And the chair recognizes the chair of the Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice, Councillor Andrea Campbell.
I just wanted to stress that you're confirming them under usual terms and conditions.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to our President Emerita. That is correct. Confirmed under the usual terms and conditions. Thank you for that. Moving on to reports of public officers and others. Madam Clerk, could you please read docket 0730 and 0731 together? Sure. Okay. Thank you for that. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Docket 0730.
0730 and 0731, please.
Notice is received from the city clerk in accordance with Chapter 6 of the ordinance of 1979 regarding action taken by the mayor on papers acted upon by the city council at its meeting of May 12, 2021. And docket number 0731, communication was received from the city clerk of the filing of the Boston Redevelopment Authority of the certificate of project termination for Westland Avenue Apartments, Chapter 121A project.
Thank you very much. Dockets 0730 and 0731 shall be placed on file. Moving on to the reports of committees. Madam Clerk, would you please read dockets 0524 through 0528?
Thank you. Docket 0524, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021, docket number 0524. Message and order for annual appropriation and tax order for the FY 2022 submits a report recommending the order ought to be rejected without prejudice. Docket number 0525, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021, docket number 0525, message and order for the annual appropriation for the school department for FY 2022 submits a report recommending the order ought to be rejected without prejudice. Docket number 0526, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021, docket number 0526. Message and order approving an appropriation of $40 million to the other post-employment benefits known as OPEB Liability Trust Fund, established under Section 20 of the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 32B, submits a report recommending the order be rejected without prejudice. Docket number 0527, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021. Docket number 0527, message and order approving an appropriation of $8,600,000 from the city's capital grant fund in order to provide funding for various transportation and public realm improvements to be credited to the capital grant fund from the parking meter fund, submits a report recommending the order ought to be rejected without prejudice. And docket number 0528, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021, docket number 0528. Message and order approving an appropriation of $2 million from the city's capital grant fund to address the impact of transportation network services on municipal roads, bridges, and other transportation infrastructure, or any other public purpose substantially related to the operation of transportation network services in the city, to be credited to the Capital Grant Fund from the Commonwealth's Transportation Infrastructure Enhancement Trust Fund, submits a report recommending the order ought to be rejected without prejudice.
Thank you very much. The chair now recognizes the chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, Councillor Bach. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I want to begin today by thanking everybody for participation in the budget process to date. Starting perhaps with staff, Michelle Goldberg, Shane Pack, and Cora Montron really hold down the side on central staff through this whole process, doing an immense amount of work behind the scenes to make sure that the council has what we need to do thoughtful, careful review. And our second and hopefully last entirely virtual budget process has been also very ably captained by Carrie and Candace in the control room. And so we're just really grateful for the both of them. grateful to my budget director, Emily Brown, and to, frankly, all the policy staff of all of the counselors who, again, have done a great deal to dig into the budget books and really prepare all of us for these 35 hearings and working sessions that we've had since the budget was introduced in mid-April. I also do want to really thank the administration for continually providing us with information to help dig into the weeds, for coming to these long hearings and answering our questions, and to residents and advocates for coming and making your voices heard. All of that work together makes a better city budget, and that's, I think, what we all have to be going for here. As folks know, the only way to get a better version of the budget in our charter is for the council at this juncture in the second week of June to vote the budget down. And I'm grateful to Councillor Edwards, all colleagues, and Mayor Janey for moving us towards putting something on the ballot that will change that somewhat inelegant process, I hope. But in the meantime, as I said, the only way for us to kind of take what we've learned along the way through this process and have it reflected in the budget that the council ultimately votes on later this month is today to reject without prejudice the operating dockets. And so that's what you have before you in these 5. There's the main operating docket, the school budget docket, which is broken out from the rest of the departments, and then a couple of dockets that support the operating budget from various sources. And I am going to ask the council to reject without prejudice so that the administration can bring back revised versions of these dockets this month. I do want to just say that, I think that there are a number of really important initiatives that there's new money for in this budget. Folks know that I've been an advocate for a conservation corps, and I think the $1 million that's in here for green jobs is really an opportunity to start that. There's a really important consolidation and making permanent of the major expansion of youth jobs, both summer and year-round, that we did last year with CARES Act money. That's turning into kind of a more permanent commitment from the city. There are, I think, some good stuff happening on kind of sidewalks and pathway work that the council is always concerned with. Investments in language access, in rapid rehousing, in food access, in affordable commercial spaces and D&D buildings. And on the policing side, I think that there continue to be real challenges around the budget. There are a couple of key investments. One is, of course, the $1 million to actually get OPAT, which this council voted to pass, up and running. Another is a $1.75 million pilot for kind of an alternative response program. And I think, my office has done a lot of digging into what that could look like, and we think that well done and collaborating really with the community and with counselors, that could turn into a really exciting initiative that, again, kind of like the green jobs thing, has the possibility of laying the groundwork for some really big picture changing stuff. But I think that what we've heard over the course of this now couple of months of conversation is that there's still lots of areas where we need more investment, where we need, frankly, including on some of the things I've just described, a little more articulation of what they're really going to look like in the year ahead. And then there are also just some updates that we need to incorporate. So actually, as referenced in our first docket, we're going to be hearing a docket from the retirement board to us considering an increase in the COLA base. That actually has an impact on our budgeting for pensions for the coming year. And of course, we know more in June and after a series of reopening announcements about where revenues are than we did when this was introduced in mid-April. So those are a number of the things on the table. I'm going to stick more to my Ways and Means Chair role in this moment than District 8 City Councilor. There are many things for District 8 to celebrate and also critique in this budget. But knowing that I'm going to be before you speaking a lot today, for now, Mr. President, I will just ask that the Council accept the committee report and that with these 5 dockets considered separately, that all of them be rejected without prejudice. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Any further discussion on the matters before us? And just to be clear for my colleagues, a yes vote means to reject the budget. So you'll be voting yes to reject the budget. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll for docket 0524?
Thank you. Docket 0524, Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Aye.
Councilor Baker, aye. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards. Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn? Yes. Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Janey? Oh my gosh, sorry about that. Counselor Mejia? Thank you so much. I don't know how I missed that page. I'm pretty good crossing them off. Counselor O'Malley?
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes, and Counselor Wu? Yes. Counselor Wu, yes. Mr. President, docket number 0524 has been unanimously rejected without prejudice.
Great, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you now please read docket 0525?
Certainly. Docket 0525, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker? Aye. Counselor Baker, aye. Counselor Bach? Yes. Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden? Yes. Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell? Yes. Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards? Yes. Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George? Yes. Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty? Yes. Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn? Yes. Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Mejia? Yes. Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley?
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. And Counselor Wu? Yes. Counselor Wu, yes. Mr. President, docket number 0525 has unanimously been rejected without prejudice.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving right along to docket 0526.
Thank you. Docket 0526, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker?
Aye.
Counselor Baker, aye. Counselor Bach? Yes. Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden? Yes. Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell? Yes. Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards? Yes. Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George? Yes. Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty? Yes. Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn? Yes. Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Mejia? Yes. Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley?
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. And Counselor Wu? Yes. Counselor Wu, yes. Mr. President, docket number 0526 has unanimously been rejected without prejudice.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to docket 0527.
Docket 0527, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Aye.
Counselor Baker, aye. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell. Yes. Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards. Yes. Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George. Yes. Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Mejia. Yes. Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. And Counselor Wu. Yes. Counselor Wu, yes. Mr. President, docket number 0527 has been unanimously rejected without prejudice.
Thank you. Docket 0528.
Docket 0528, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Aye.
Counselor Baker, aye. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell. Yes. Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards. Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George.
Yes.
Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Mejia. Yes. Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. And Counselor Wu. Yes. Counselor Wu, yes. Mr. President, docket number 0528 has been unanimously rejected without prejudice.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, would you now please read dockets 0529 through 0531?
Thank you. Docket 0529, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021, docket number 0529, message and order approving the appropriation of, excuse me, $237,654,000 for the acquisition of interest in land or the acquisition of assets of landscaping, alteration, remediation, rehabilitation, improvement of public land, the construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, improvement, alteration, remodeling, enlargement, demolition, removal, or extraordinary repairs of public buildings, facilities, assets, works, or infrastructure for the cost of feasibility studies or engineering or architectural services for plans and specifications, for the development and design, purchase and installation of computer hardware or software or computer-assisted integrated financial management and accounting systems, and any and all costs incidentally or related to the above described projects for the purpose of various city departments, including Boston Center for Youth and Families, Department of Innovation and Technology, Environment, Fire, Neighborhood Development, Office of Arts and Culture, Parks and Recreation, Police, Property Management, Public Works, Transportation, Boston Public Library, Boston Redevelopment Authority, and Public Health Commission submits a report recommending the order ought to read for the first time and be assigned for further action. Docket number 0530, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021, docket number 0530. Message and an order approving the appropriation of $50,438,000 for the acquisition of interest in land or the acquisition of assets or landscaping, alteration, remediation, rehabilitation, or improvement of public land, the construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, improvement, alterations, remodeling, enlargement, demolition, removal of extraordinary repairs of public buildings and facilities, assets, work or infrastructure for the cost of feasibility studies or engineering or architectural services for plans and specifications for the development, design, purchase, and installation of computer hardware or software and computer-assisted integrated financial management or accounting systems, and any all costs incidental or related to the above-described projects for the purpose of the Boston Public Schools, submits a report recommending the order ought to be read for the first time and assigned for further action. Docket number 0531, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021. Docket number 0531, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to enter into one or more lease purchase or installment sales agreements in fiscal year 2022 in an amount not to exceed $31 million. Funds from which to be used by various city departments for the acquisition of equipment and furtherance of their respective governmental functions, with equipment to include computer equipment, hardware, software, motor vehicles, trailers, ambulances, firefighting equipment, office equipment, telecommunication equipment, photocopying equipment, medical equipment, school and educational equipment, school buses, parking meters, street lighting installation, traffic signal equipment, and equipment functionally related to and components of the foregoing, submits a report recommending the order ought to be read for the first time and assigned for further action. Docket number 0532, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred.
That's all, Madam Clerk.
Oops,
Through
sorry.
531. Thank you very much.
I got carried away with myself.
Quite all right. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thanks.
We know there's a lot of reading. We appreciate that. So the chair now, for dockets 529 through 531, which is our capital budget, the chair now recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, Councillor Kenzie Bach.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. And yes, Madam Clerk, we'll get there soon enough. As the President noted, these three dockets pertain to the city's capital budget, which is so key to our long-term prosperity and frankly, just to sort of the long-term vision of the city, whether you're thinking about schools, housing, the environmental infrastructure that we need, digital equity and kind of municipal broadband work, all of that is stuff that comes in the capital budget. We vote on the capital budget differently, as councilors know, but for members of the public watching, because the capital budget is for long-term investments, we borrow the money by bonding to build these things. And so these are dockets on which the council is actually voting to indebt the city. And because of that, to make sure that we've really considered it, we have two votes at least 2 weeks apart and need at least 2/3. And so I will be moving as the Ways and Means Chair for us to take the first of those votes, do the first of those readings today. In my own district, what capital looks like when it meets the ground this time around is everything from, some really desperately needed pedestrian interventions in Mission Hill that include really transforming Terrace Street into more of a residential and commercial street where it's been kind of an industrial one and isn't safe for folks who are using it in all modes right now. It looks like investment in our parks, from accessible pathways in the Fens to playgrounds from Mission Hill to Back Bay to another block of the ComAv Mall at Kenmore, or much needed work on the maintenance shed in the public garden. And of course, continuing work on what we look forward to having open as the gem of our school system, the Boston Arts Academy, in the school year after this one. And I will let other councilors who choose to speak to other capital projects in their districts. But I also just want to note that so many of the things that we fund in this budget are things that no matter where they land physically, they benefit the whole city. I mean, I think about the fact that this is now the third year running that we are supporting public housing in this capital budget. And much to my chagrin, none of those public housing developments are in my district. But whether we're talking about, improving the conditions of elderly housing at St. Botolph in Councillor Flynn's district, or at Pat White in Councillor Braden's district, or at Charlestown and Orion Heights in Councillor Edwards' district, or Doris Bunty, I think that these are things that benefit the whole city of Boston and our overall, community welfare. And so, we're all interested in projects in our district, but we all also are interested in these things that cross all these boundaries. So, as I said, this will be the first of 2 votes necessitated for the city to be authorized to issue these bonds and support these projects. And my recommendation is that the committee report be accepted and that the first reading of these dockets be done, Mr. President, and that they be assigned for further action. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion on the capital budget writ large? Seeing none, we will move on to the votes. In this case, a yes vote means yes of the first of 2 votes, which is the recommendation of the chair. So, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll for the first reading of docket 0529?
Thank you. Docket 0529, first reading. Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Aye.
Councilor Baker, aye. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden. Yes. Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell. Yes. Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards. Yes. Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George. Yes. Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty. Yes. Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn. Yes. Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Mejia. Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. And Councilor Wu. Yes. Councilor Wu, yes. Mr. President, docket number 0529 has received its first reading unanimously.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Please proceed to docket 0530.
Docket 0530, first reading. Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Aye.
Councilor Baker, aye. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards. Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Mejia. Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. And Councilor Wu. Councilor Wu, yes. Mr. President, docket number 0530 has received its first reading unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And finally, for the capital budget, would you please call the roll on docket 0531?
Thank you. Docket 0531, first reading. Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Aye.
Councilor Baker, aye. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell. Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards. Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George. Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Mejia. Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. And Councilor Wu. Yes. Councilor Wu, yes. Mr. President, docket number 0531 has received its first reading and passed unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Docket 0529, 0530, and 0531 will be assigned for further action. Madam Clerk, would you now please read dockets 0532 through 0543?
Thank you. Docket 0532. The Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021, docket number 0532. Message and order authorizing a limit for the Boston Public Schools revolving fund for fiscal year 2022 to support maintenance and repairs for BPS facilities, including custodial and utility costs for extended building time, floor refinishing, landscaping, and building repairs with expenditures not to exceed $2,200,000. Submits the report recommending this order ought to pass. Docket number 0533, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021, docket number 0533, message and order authorizing a limit for the Boston Public Schools revolving fund for fiscal year 2022 to repair and purchase Boston Public Schools computer technology, including computers, mobile devices, and instructional software, with expenditures not to exceed $2 million. Submits a report recommending the order ought to pass. Docket number 0534, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021. Docket number 0534, message and order authorizing a limit for the Boston Public Schools revolving fund for fiscal year 2022 for the Boston Public Schools transportation costs, including bus and public transportation costs with expenditures not to exceed $100,000. Submits a report recommending the order ought to pass. Docket number 0535, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021. Docket number 0535, message and order authorizing a limit for the Boston Police Department revolving fund for fiscal year 2022 to support the K-9 units training program for officers and police dogs from non-City of Boston law enforcement agencies, with expenditures not to exceed $100,000. Submits a report recommending the order ought to pass. Docket number 0536, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021. Docket number 0536, message and order authorizing a limit for the Boston Police Department revolving fund for fiscal year 2022 to pay salaries and benefits of employees and to purchase supplies and equipment necessary to operate the police department's fitness center with expenditures not to exceed $100,000. Submits a report recommending the order ought to pass. Docket number 0537, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021. Docket number 0537, message and order authorizing a limit for the Boston Centers for Youth and Families revolving fund for fiscal year 2022 to pay salaries and benefits of employees and to purchase supplies and equipment necessary to operate the City Hall child care, with expenditures not to exceed $850,000. Submits a report recommending the order ought to pass. Docket number 0538, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021. Docket number 0538, message and order authorizing a limit for the Distributed Energy Resource Revolving Fund for fiscal year 2022 to facilitate the purchase of offsets of greenhouse gas emissions, which shall be associated with a portion of the electricity consumed by the city annually, and to operate, maintain, monitor, and expand the city's existing solar arrays and Boston Public Schools combined heat and power facilities, with expenditures not to exceed $150,000. Submits a report recommending the order ought to pass. Docket number 0539, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021. Docket number 0539, message and order authorizing a limit for the Environment Conservation Commission revolving fund for fiscal year 2022 for the purpose of securing outside consultants, including engineers, wetland scientists, wildlife biologists, and other experts, in order to aid the review and proposed projects to the Commission per the city's ordinance protecting local wetlands and promoting climate change adaptation through the expenditures not to exceed $50,000. Submits a report recommending the order ought to pass. Docket number 0540, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021. Docket number 0540, message and order authorizing the Law Department's revolving fund for fiscal year 2022 to purchase goods and services for repairs to city property with expenditures not to exceed $250,000. Submits a report recommending the order ought to pass. Docket number 0541, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021. Docket number 0541, message and order authorizing a limit for the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture revolving fund for fiscal year 2022 to purchase goods and services to support public art, to enhance the public realm throughout the city of Boston, with expenditures not to exceed $120,000. Submits a report recommending the order ought to pass. Docket number 0542, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021. Docket number 0542, message and order authorizing a limit for the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture revolving fund for fiscal year 2022 to purchase goods and services to support the operation of the Strand Theater, with expenditures not to exceed $30,000. Submits a report recommending the order ought to pass. And docket number 0543, Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021, docket number 0543, message and order authorizing a limit for the Mayor's Office of Tourism revolving fund for fiscal year 2022 to purchase goods and services to support events and programming on and around City Hall Plaza, to advance tourism and to promote participation in public celebration, civic and cultural events with expenditures not to exceed $50,000. Submits a report recommending the order ought to pass.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. The chair now recognizes the chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, Councillor Bach. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I think, as folks know, revolving funds, the hint's in the name, they are dedicated funds that revolve through where there's a specific purpose. We, for instance, take in money from membership fees for the police department's exercise equipment and facilities, and then that money goes into maintaining them. So it's things like that, City Hall childcare, et cetera, and where the income is directly linked to the dedicated purpose on which the funds are spent. So it's not actually taxpayer funds, but the reason that the City Council has oversight is just to make sure that we don't end up with too much of a proliferation of these funds, and that, you know, they don't sit for multiple years and people kind of lose track of the balances. It's just, from a good accounting perspective, you really want to keep an eye on all such funds. So therefore, what the council is asked to do each year is to set the limit of the amount of money that any one of these funds can hold. And those are the dockets that we'll be voting on today. We have reviewed these in concert with our departmental hearing operation, and we have asked for and received from the administration detailed reports on each of these revolving funds, how much they took in the past year, how much they spent. A number of them, frankly, were not very active in this past year because they have to do with some kind of economic activity that basically ground to a halt due to the pandemic. So it was not a very eventful year in many of our revolving funds, but you know, this is an important piece of fiscal accountability, and having reviewed all those reports, I am comfortable with all the limits being set across the different departmental revolving funds, and I think the documentation we've received as a council has been adequate to that purpose. So, Mr. Chair, I would recommend with all of these dockets that the council approve them and vote and accept the committee report and vote to pass today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Any further discussion on the revolving funds? Okay, well, hearing no further discussion, I'm going to call for a voice vote for these. If any individuals would like to be recorded, either, I would assume they will pass, but if you'd like to be recorded, no, or request a roll call, you as councillors can do that. But I think for the fact that these have gone through before and they've been fully vetted, a voice vote is sufficient. So starting with docket 0532, all those in favor of passage of docket 532, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 532 is passed. Docket 533, all those in favor of passage, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The order is passed. 534, all those in favor of passage, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. 534 has passed. For docket 0535, all those in favor of passage, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. 535 has passed. Docket 0536, all those in favor of passage, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0536 is passed. For docket 0537, all those in favor of passage, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 537 has passed. For docket 0538, all those support passage, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The order is passed. Docket 0539, all those in favor of passage, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 539 has passed. For docket 0540, all those in support of passage, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. 540 has passed. Docket 0541, all those in favor of passage, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The order is passed. For docket 0542, all those in favor of passage, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Docket 0542 has passed. And for docket 0543, all those in support of passage, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Docket 0543 has passed. Thank you very much. We're now moving on to the Parkman, PEG, and Equity Funds. Madam Clerk, would you please read docket 0544, 0555, and 0544, 0545, and 0546 together.
Thank you, Mr. President. Docket 0544, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021, docket number 0544. Message and order authorizing the appropriation of $1,300,000 from the income of the George Francis Parkman Fund, submits a report recommending the order ought to be rejected without prejudice. Docket number 0545, the Committee on Ways and Means, which was referred to on April 14, 2021, docket number 0545, message and order approving the appropriation of $4,400,000 from the 21st Century Fund, also known as the Public Educational or Governmental PEG Access and Cable Related Fund, pursuant to Section 53F and 3/4 of Chapter 44 of the General Laws, to the PEG Access and Cable Related Grant for cable-related purposes consistent with the franchise agreements between the cable operator and the city, including but not limited to: 1, supporting public educational or governmental access cable television services; 2, monitoring compliance of cable operator with the franchise agreement; or 3, preparation of renewals of the franchise license, submits a report recommending the order ought to be rejected without prejudice. And docket number 0546, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on April 14, 2021, docket number 0546, order authorizing the City of Boston to appropriate the amount of $500,000 from the City of Boston's Equity Fund to create a special revenue project grant in order to support equity applicants and licensees as defined by the Equity Program to establish and operate a cannabis business in the City of Boston. Submits a report recommending the order ought to be rejected without prejudice.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. The Chair now recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, Chair Bach. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. These are three excellent dockets, and what I mean by that is that, I think the stuff that the Parkman Fund supports in terms of parks, the PEG Access Fund support for both TechGo's Home and BNN, and the Equity Fund support for local equity entrepreneurs in the cannabis industry are all really important purposes, and I fully expect to come before this council asking you to approve these dockets in the very near future. At the moment, we're still waiting on the full accounting information on the funds, including their current balances, and I don't feel, as Chair of Ways and Means, that it's appropriate for the council to make an appropriation from a fund until we have the full balance information. So I expect that very shortly, but since we don't have it yet, and just because of the sort of timing of orders and such, I am recommending today that we reject these without prejudice. I will just preview for the council that because we have thoroughly vetted these in the hearing process and we're just waiting on some of that final accounting due diligence, I'm quite likely to bring these for a suspension without passage at a future meeting. But today, Mr. President, I would ask that colleagues accept the committee recommendation in the report that these three dockets be rejected without prejudice.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And once again, colleagues, a yes vote means no with these three dockets. Madam Chair, I will defer to you. Is a voice vote sufficient for these, or would you like individual roll calls?
I think it's probably fine. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much. Any further discussion on Parkman, PEG, or Equity? Seeing no further lights, we will begin with docket 0544. All those in favor of accepting the committee report, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The committee report has been accepted, and docket 0544 has been rejected without prejudice. Docket 0545, all those in support of the committee report, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0545 has been rejected without prejudice. And for docket 0546, all those in favor of supporting the committee report, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0546 has been rejected without prejudice. Thank you, Madam Chair. Moving right along to matters recently heard for possible action. Madam Clerk, would you please read docket 0686?
Thank you. Docket 0686, Message in order for your approval, a declaration of trust entitled East Boston Housing Stabilization Trust Fund. This trust will work to prevent displacement of East Boston residents by establishing a fund to support rent-burdened residents.
The chair recognizes Councillor Kenzie Bach, Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means. Chair Bach, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an exciting East Boston Trust for Housing Stabilization. I will ask in a minute, Mr. President, for your indulgence to allow my colleague, Councillor Lydia Edwards, to say a few words on it. It's come out of the Suffolk Downs process as a commitment to the neighborhood that goes beyond the linkage and IDP processes that we have codified in the city. And as we discussed at the hearing that we had yesterday, it, I think, really has the potential to serve as a model for how we make sure that we, secure development without displacement in the city, and really, consider that on a neighborhood basis. And we have actually mentioned this type of model as one of the possible interventions in the affirmatively furthering fair housing regulation documents. So I think it's a pretty exciting model, and of course, for something to be a model, it has to actually be instituted, and that is the vote that is before the council today. I would like to thank Councillors Flynn, Baker, and Mejia for joining the hearing yesterday, but especially Councillor Edwards, and then Mayor Janey and the Treasury staff, Drew Smith and Margaret Dyson, not just for joining the hearing, but for all of the work that led up to the hearing in terms of putting the trust documents together that are before you today. There are a couple of changes since this docket was first filed that I just want to note. They're in the committee report. One thing is sort of as a happy medium, an agreement was reached that while the mayor appoints 6 trustees, each from a different sort of competency area, from environmental justice to affordable housing, et cetera, the mayor will appoint those from a slate of nominees presented by the District 1 City Councilor. And if for some reason, after nominations are made, an extended period, 3 months goes by and appointments are not made, then the appointment power devolves to the District 1 City Councilor. Also, the District 1 City Councilor, the state rep, and the state senator for East Boston all sit on this trust ex officio. And we also just added a little clarifying thing in one of the last provisions of the trust that makes it clear that in the extremely unlikely event that the trust were invalidated, that such an invalidation would have to be done by a court, which is the only situation which would happen, and it's not something that's happened because, again, the city of Boston, as we learned in the hearing, has about 300 odd trusts, and so over the years has gotten fairly good at the legal due diligence around them. So we're looking to add this one to the number today, and as I said, I think it would be appropriate for my colleague, Councillor Edwards, to speak, but after that, Mr. Chairman, my recommendation would be that the council accept the committee report and that this docket pass in a new draft. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The chair now recognizes the district councilor from East Boston and the person for whom I hope makes these appointments to the committee. Councillor Edwards, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. This is a celebratory moment. I want to say thank you again to Chairwoman Bach for the expedient hearing that she had for this matter. I do want to thank the Treasury Department, Drew and Margaret, for their immense amount of work that we did behind the scenes in helping to educate my office and work back and forth on the corpus of the trust and the goals of the trust and making sure it was consistent with the other 300. And also, they jumped right in and were willing to make sure that as this trust will live in perpetuity, that they, as the City of Boston, will be there at the table, providing accounting services, providing fiscal management, and also making sure that there's a legal person or legal mind sitting there with the trustees. So this is a good day, and it's a model because so many of our neighborhoods are dealing with so much development that we hope that not only this new trust for East Boston, but there will be 9 additional trusts for each district or each neighborhood, and as large developments happen, we will set the mold. We already take money from linkage and provide it to our housing trust and our jobs trust. This is creating a neighborhood trust saying, you developers who come here to make money in East Boston, you will not contribute to this trust. And who will be in control of that are the folks of East Boston. Every trustee that will be appointed will be living in the neighborhood. And that is something we've all fought for as city councilors, that the development dollars stay in the neighborhood that is being developed, and that we can help to prevent displacement, and we can help our fellow East Bostonians purchase homes. This is an exciting moment, because not only do we set the mold, but we also are inviting developers to the table, because many of them said, while we love to contribute to the baseball leagues, while we love to contribute to beautifying the medians, we love even more that our dollars could pay it forward for someone to purchase a home. in East Boston. And they see that as a true permanent partnership. Again, I want to thank my fellow councilors, Councilor Baker, Councilor Braden, and I spoke at length as well about this, Councilor Bach, Councilor Mejia, Councilor Flynn for all attending, but every single one of you actually have given the neighborhood of East Boston kudos, and I want to thank you so much. So, you know, I can't say this enough. We are making history, we are breaking the mold, but we're also doing it in a way that invites people in, as my colleague says, right? As we make sure that we're moving forward and developing without displacement. So thank you so much for everything. I hope you guys will vote for this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. Any further discussion on docket 0686? Seeing none. The Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, Councillor Bach, and the District 1 Councillor, Councillor Edwards, seek passage of acceptance of the committee report and passage in a new draft of docket 0686. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it.
Mr. President.
Very well. Thank you very much, Councillor Baker. Madam Clerk, Councillor Baker has doubted the vote. Would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Docket 0686, Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Aye.
Councilor Baker, aye. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell. Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards. Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Sabi George. Councilor Sabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Mejia. Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. And Councilor Wu. Yes. Councilor Wu, yes. Mr. President, docket number 0686 has passed unanimously in the new draft.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Congratulations, colleagues. Madam Clerk, would you now please read docket 0687?
Docket 0687, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $50 million in the form of a grant awarded by the United States Department of Treasury to be administered by the City of Boston's Chief Financial Officer / Collector Treasurer. This grant payment is made from the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, known as CLFRF, in the Treasury of the United States, established by Section 9901 of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, known as ARPA.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The Chair now recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, Chair Bach. The floor is yours.
Last one, sorry everyone. Yeah, thank you so much to colleagues for joining us for the hearing yesterday. And also I want to thank the complement of Cabinet officials who joined us, including Chief Sterrett, Martinez, Dillon, Morikawa, and Barrios Milner, to talk about this proposed grant. As I said yesterday, you know, as we think about this large amount of money from the American Rescue Plan, $500 million just for the kind of government support services, about half of that coming this year and half coming next year, in addition to the 400 at the schools, and in addition to the funding that's going directly to rental relief. We're really balancing kind of a set of different issues. So there's the idea of making sure that we hold on to enough, since this is across 4 years, that if we have revenue challenges ongoing, and we know that there may be some property tax revenue impacts related to the construction market in the next couple of years, that we've got some of it to support that we've got some to support kind of like big structural moonshot things that we need as a city to do to really move ourselves forward and change things in a fundamental way. And that's something I'm really looking forward to having Councillor Flaherty's committee that you established, Mr. President, the COVID-19 committee, really vet and be in on the ground floor in the first inning, as my colleague says, on. There's a third thing, which is that we are obviously in the middle of a very fragile moment of economic recovery, of continuing dealing with COVID-19 from testing to vaccination, and there are sort of existing city programs that we've stood up in the pandemic that require financial support in the kind of 3 to 6 month term. So what we discussed with the administration over the past few months was, let's whittle down to that question and really have the piece of this that Ways and Means is talking about in conjunction with our budget be about that more immediate term stuff. And so yesterday we heard from the administration about a number of recommendations that they're offering for kind of extending that good work that's ongoing and putting some, like, you know, quickly spendable dollars down, whether it's for small business relief, amping up support at Mass and Cass, a number of different things. And I really appreciate the work they put into that, the amount of detail that we got in memoranda from them in advance, and again, the presentation yesterday. I am expecting to move this to a vote in the very near future. I haven't, because we had it yesterday afternoon, I haven't had a chance to check in with every colleague about it, and because we're balancing here the need to move with alacrity as a council and also the need to be really good stewards of these federal dollars. And I know that there are a few follow-up questions that I just want to chase down for people. So I am going to ask today, Mr. President, that this be kept in committee. But again, I will just preview for colleagues that I do think it's appropriate for us to try to get some of this money out the door into kind of existing programs that we have, so that folks are feeling the impact of that assistance that's been passed from the federal government through us in the next 3 to 6 months. So I do expect to be moving this docket in the near future, Mr. President, but for today, I would ask that it remain in committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair Bach. Any further discussion on docket 0687? Seeing none, docket 0687 shall remain. Oh, I do apologize, Councillor Baker. The chair recognizes the district councillor from Dorchester. Councillor Baker, the floor is yours.
That's okay, thank you. I'd like to thank the chair for keeping this in committee. I think we do have some questions. I have some questions around the acquisitions of property. I'd like to be involved in those decisions, know what properties we're looking at, if the city wants to retain those properties. I sometimes feel like, I hope we don't at the end of this feel like it was a long weekend in Vegas. We spent a whole ton of money. We don't have anything to show for it. So I'm looking at infrastructure down at Mass and Cass. You know, we need mobile units down there, whether if they're for vaccinations. We've engaged with the group that does shops returns, that we actually pay people to bring the shops in. We need bathrooms down there. We need things like that. So I'd like to see some of our infrastructure augmented. I mean, fleets for public works, fleets for the whole city. So I want to be cautious in this. Like I said, I don't want it to feel like a weekend in Vegas. We blew a whole bunch of money and don't have anything. So thank you for keeping it in committee. Thank you, Mr.
Well
Chair.
said. Thank you very much, Councillor Baker. Chair now recognizes the district councillor from East Boston, Councillor Edwards. The floor is yours.
Again, I want to thank you for keeping it in committee, and I do want to just go back to Mass and Cass, which if you were at the hearing, you'd have known that was a recurring theme throughout. And while there's $3 million-ish dedicated to that, I just want to acknowledge not only is that a growing issue, but when talking with the people of Public Works and I just want to acknowledge what they deal with. That includes human feces. And the hard work that takes. And so when we go to give out money and give assistance, we just need to acknowledge who is on the other end of that and who is dealing with, not just the person who is in need of treatment, okay? But the hardworking city workers who are overwhelmingly nameless, who are called because the rest of us are too good or will not ever touch that. So I just want to acknowledge them. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Councillor Edwards. No further discussion on docket 0687. It shall remain in the Committee on Ways and Means. Motions, orders, and resolutions, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Docket 0732, Councilors Baker and Flynn offer the following order for hearing regarding maximizing workforce development opportunities in the biotechnology for Boston residents.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The chair now recognizes the district council from Dorchester, Councillor Baker. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to first invoke Rule 12 and add Council Bach and Council Braden. Are we able to add two?
We had
Oh, we
Councillor.
already had Eddie, so I can only
Eddie?
add one. So they need to buck up?
Well, there is a motion to suspend Rule 12 on the table, which there's a motion before us on Rule 12, suspension of Rule 12, which I would allow more than one.
If you
in my
would,
interpretation.
if not, we've worked it out so one person will step back. We won't have to buck it up on the floor.
Well, let's, in the spirit of coming together, unless there's any objection to the suspension of Rule 12, I will hereby add Councilors Bach and Braden to join you and Councillor Flynn as co-sponsors of docket 0732.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just first say, I wore the suit today because it's summertime. This is me having a smile on my face. This is my party dress, so I'm here just trying to lighten the mood a bit. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Councilor Flynn. Bach and Braden for co-sponsoring this with me. I filed this hearing order today because the city of Boston is undergoing a massive boom in development, specifically in lab and other high-tech manufacturing developments. In my district alone, in just the Beat, the old Globe site, which when the Globe, to put it in perspective, when the Globe was at its height, was 3,500 people. That was a lot of jobs. The Beat now is planning on 4,000 high-tech jobs. We don't even know what the jobs are. Coming in the next few years, I think we as a city have an obligation to ensure that our residents in all our neighborhoods should have direct access to these high-paying jobs and/or the ability to gain job training they need for a pathway to employment in these jobs. I think if we work collaboratively with the developments, workforce development, and job training nonprofit organizations, we'll be able to provide the best benefit to the city of Boston and its residents. Thank you, Mr. President. And with that, if anybody else would like to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. The chair now recognizes the district councillor from South Boston, Councillor Flynn. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor O'Malley. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councillor Baker, for including me on this hearing order. Appreciate your partnership. Thank you for your work on workforce development issues, Councillor Baker. Life sciences has been a major new industry that's moving into the city of Boston, particularly in my district, down at Fort Point, the South Boston waterfront, South Boston, the Chinatown area, and in the South End. And they're good paying jobs, they're great careers. But what I ask and what I hope to get out of this hearing is what impact will this have on the residents of Boston that live in that particular neighborhood? Will there be opportunities for training? Will there be opportunities for educational programs? Is there a pathway for Boston residents to get those good-paying jobs so that they can go into a great career? We have great talent in the city, especially our young people that went to schools here in Boston, the Boston Public Schools. We want to make sure that these life science jobs are available to them. We want to make sure that this new industry is welcoming to longtime Boston residents, to immigrants, communities of color, making sure that kids in the Boston Housing Authority also have an opportunity to learn about life sciences and the impact they have on our city as well. So I'm glad to partner with Councillor Baker and with my colleagues, Councillor Bach and Braden, on this important initiative. I know myself and Councillor Flaherty are doing a similar hearing on the impact life sciences have on a particular neighborhood. That hearing hopefully will happen soon. We're talking about that hearing happening soon. But my number one priority is making sure that in this new industry that Boston residents are included in a pathway to jobs and a pathway to a good-paying job and career. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flynn. Chair now recognizes the district councillor from Alston Brighton, Councillor Braden. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am very grateful to Councillor Baker and Councillor Flynn for including me in this hearing order. We have a wonderful opportunity right now in our district in Alston Brighton. We are seeing plans in the pipeline for new biotech facilities, multiple biotech facilities that will be needing thousands of workers. And we also have a situation in our city where many of our residents are unable to climb the economic ladder and improve their situation because they don't have access to good-paying jobs. So I feel this is a win-win for the city and for our communities. And I want to see our young people and our residents in Boston be prepared to access all of the different types of jobs that are going to come in this new emerging industry in our neighbourhoods. There's also a climate angle on this. Many of the new facilities coming into Alston Brighton want to have huge numbers of parking spaces so that their workforce can commute in and from the suburbs and work in Alston Brighton. And one of the benefits of this program would be that we would train workers who could live, work and play locally, and they wouldn't be sitting for 2 hours each way coming in from the suburbs to work in our neighbourhoods. So I think it's a win-win from a climate perspective and also from an economic development and social advancement perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braden. Chair now recognizes the District Councillor from Beacon Hill, Councillor Bach. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, and thank you to Councillors Baker, Flynn, and Braden for letting me be the fourth wheel on the tricycle. I just, much like the other district councillors you've heard from, the life sciences boom that we're experiencing in the city is hitting my district on the ground. In my district, what that looks like is that the long-term lab and medical center of excellence at Longwood is extending into the rest of Fenway, all the way down Kenmore Square, down to Kenmore Square. And in fact, because of that, we've just launched in partnership with the BPDA, a Brookline Ave CAC, to really vet a series of major lab proposed development projects sort of more holistically, thinking about, yes, the impacts on the public realm and transportation and all such things, but also really importantly, this workforce development question. Because, I already have a district with a number of industries of which we are intensely proud, right? The universities and the hospitals, I think of in particular in my district, but which still employ too few kids who grew up in Boston, right? And too few of my constituents who grew up in Mission Hill. And I think that, we can't just let sort of the next step in the global economy happen to Boston in ways that just continue to deepen our economic inequality. And so it's completely essential that we be asking about these lab jobs. How do we make sure that they are for our young people, for our Black and brown young people, for our BPS kids? And it's not going to happen by accident. It's something that I have been pushing, the Office of Workforce Development, the BPDA, the Office of Economic Development on, but also every developer who's coming with these. Because it's not enough to just say, well, I'm going to pay jobs trust linkage. Because I don't think that we have solved, with the current suite of programs we support, excellent as they are, we have not solved this pipeline. And like I said, it's not going to happen automatically. And I think it's really important to recognize there's a whole ecosystem around lab jobs. I mean, there is absolutely principal investigators in the kind of international academic economy you're participating in, but there's also tons of jobs as lab techs, which often can then lead to people going and getting their PhD and doing other things. But they're all well paid, and these just can't be jobs that pass Bostonians by. So I think this is really a moment for exactly the kind of intervention that our city economic development and workforce development tools should be designed to do. And I think also in the moment of COVID-19, everyone has seen how critical lab and biotech work is. I mean, we are all standing here today. I have my mask off because I am fully vaccinated with something that was developed in labs partly in my district. Like, that's amazing, and I hope that it's going to inspire a whole generation of young people to say, I can be part of this. But then they have to actually encounter the programs and the coursework and the pathway that lets them be part of it. Shame on us if we don't seize that moment. But the moment from Global Capital's perspective is coming regardless. The entire Red Line corridor is headed this way. So I just think, the time is now, and I'm really grateful again to my colleagues for their leadership, and I'm looking forward to working together on this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Bach. The chair now recognizes the at-large councillor from Dorchester, Councillor Anissa Saibi-George. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the makers for this hearing order before us. Please add my name. And I would suggest that as we look to open the door, as Councillor Bach mentioned, to the generation of young people who are looking to access these opportunities, to be a part of that workforce, to be prepared to be a part of this future, that we are very directly connecting this work and including the Boston Public Schools in this hearing, and in particular, Madison Park Vocational Technical High School. When we think about the work that's happening there, it needs to be more than just the construction trades and culinary arts, which are successful programs in itself. But as we look to grow this industry, this sector in our city, and when we think about the talent and the talent pool necessary to grow it in this city, we need to make sure that we are tapping into our kids, and in particular our kids at Madison Park. So I would encourage the makers and the lead sponsors of this hearing and who will chair this hearing to include Madison Park and Boston Public Schools in this work. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sabi-George. Chair now recognizes the District Council from Dorchester, Councillor Baker. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to make a couple more points. I had a meeting this morning with BPDA people that were talking about $7 billion in development coming to the Metro Boston area, building these structures. And so I asked the difference between lab jobs, biotech jobs, and we have the high-tech manufacturing. They're all three different buckets. I think in this hearing we should address all of them. It all gets down to training and job training, and where I think our hole is, we don't have actual brick and mortar places to do that training. Part of my negotiations with the developer at the BEAT, the old Globe site, is for them to provide an actual space within that building to provide the job training, and we're trying to pull that together with Mass BioEd now. And I know the Abbey Group is working on something over in South Boston on the waterfront. There's a lot going on. It's time for the city to step in and kind of pull it all together. And another point that Liz and I were bouncing around, Liz is over in Brighton, and there's probably a couple thousand jobs there that we don't know what they are. So one of the things that I think we should do and work with the workforce development people is maybe come up with areas where we could go and see what the jobs are. Maybe it's Brighton Main Streets, maybe it's Fields Corner Main Streets with me, that we support them and give them some money, and they're contacting all these companies so we can have a list of all the jobs. Then we know everything from lab specialists down to the custodians and the people that are down here. It's all the jobs, because if we're looking at the building that's happening, it's who's taking care of the labs, who's taking care of all the infrastructure within there. So we need to be on this now. This should be talked about as much as housing. So there's for stability, my mother always told me you need your house first. You need to feel stable in where you live, and then you need to provide for your family. So we should be at least working towards those two things really hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Chair now recognizes the at-large council from Dorchester, Councillor Mejia. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm really excited, and thank the lead sponsors for bringing this to the floor. I actually was a PIC student, and I got to work at the hospital, at Brigham and Women's Hospital, and it literally saved my life. So I know access to great opportunities do create a strong foundation. But I would also just kind of would like to urge us to, as we consider this conversation, is think about all of those folks who are doing business in the city of Boston. I think about some of the advertising agencies when we think about Madison Park. Let's just really look at who are all of the organizations and businesses, and create as many opportunities to allow us to build a pipeline that we're getting not just Madison Park students, but Boston Arts Academy, all of the schools, access to great jobs as well. I know this is not about young people, but I just kind of want to echo that we got to start them young, and we've got to create as many opportunities for paid internships, because that is what's really going to build a strong workforce. So just want to throw that out there as an advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mejia. Any further discussion on docket 0732? Seeing none, would any councillors wish to add their name as a co-sponsor? Madam Clerk, please add Councillor Arroyo, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Sabi-George, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Mejia, Councillor Wu, and please add the chair as well. And docket 0732 shall be referred to the Committee on Small Business and Workforce Development. Madam Clerk, would you please read docket 0733?
Docket 0733, Councilors Baker and Flynn offered the following resolution in support of Senate Bill 1669, an act relative to providing a COVID-19 retirement credit to essential public sector workers.
Chair now recognizes the District Council from Dorchester and the best-dressed person in the chamber today, Councillor Baker. The floor is yours.
I'm glad you recognize that. Thank you, Mr. President. Now you have me off my game. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Council Flynn, for co-sponsoring this with me here today. I filed this resolution in support of Senator Nick Collins' bill, an act relative to providing COVID-19 retirement credits to essential public sector workers. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the numerous challenges that we've all faced, we had to adapt to a new way of living. Some of us have been able to effectively work remotely, and there are many who have had to continue their role without a change in pace. This bill would allow the Secretary of Administration and Finance in the Commonwealth to identify all employees who have worked in person through the governor's declared state of emergency and essentially allow them to get a 3-year retirement credit. I'm about 35 years in the city now, and there were 2 buyouts in my time. We used to just have buyouts. It would be a 5-year, and it was available to people that were ready to retire. This here would be so that you could hold the 3 years in the bank. So if I were the person that's security here, not ready to retire, I could use that 3 years down the line when I'm ready to retire. So it's a really, really good benefit for the people that have kept all of our operations working. And it's also why, if you heard on the hearing yesterday about the Fed money coming in, why I'd like to see some of this money to be able to go towards retirements. As we have an aging workforce and things are really changing, it would go a long way for people that feel like that they've gotten the short end of the stick here going to work, while some of us at home in our bathrobes, you know, doing Zoom meetings. So this is just a really good thing. Let me get back to my speaking points. Senate 1669 has received support from agencies such as the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, Suffolk County Sheriff's Department, the MBTA, Massachusetts Organization of State Engineers and Scientists, and others throughout the Commonwealth. It is my hope today that we can go on record and pass this resolution to recognize the significant contributions of our essential workers during COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. The chair now recognizes the district council from South Boston. Councillor Flynn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to my colleague, Council Baker, for asking me to be part of this important resolution in support of the exceptional work that so many workers did during this pandemic. These workers put their health and their life on the line for the residents of the city and the Commonwealth as well. They not only put their health on the line, but their family's health as well was impacted. I think this is a fair opportunity for us to acknowledge their contribution to our city and to our state, to thank them. But, you know, we're really not giving them anything. A lot of these workers were exposed to various health hazards while performing their duties. So a lot of these workers will continue to have health-related issues the rest of their life, whether it's respiratory issues or other significant issues. So I want to thank Senator Collins for proposing this up at the State House, but also thanking my colleague, Councilor Baker, but especially thanking the workers that really served our city and served our state so professionally and during this very difficult year. So Boston is proud of them, and certainly the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is proud of them as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flynn. Any further discussion on docket 0733? Would any councillors wish to add their name as a co-sponsor to docket 733? Madam Clerk, please add Councillor Arroyo, Councillor Bach, Councillor Braden, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Saiby-George, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Mejia, Councillor Wu. Please add the chair's name as well. And you want to suspend? Councillor Baker and Councillor Flynn are seeking suspension of the rules and adoption of docket 0733. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0733 has passed. Congratulations, colleagues. Madam Clerk, please read docket 0734.
Docket 0734, Councilor Mejia offered the following order for hearing regarding reparations and their impact on the civil rights of Black Bostonians.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The chair now recognizes the at-large counsel from Dorchester. Councillor Mejia, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Do I need to turn this on? Okay.
You're on.
I'd like to add Councillor Bach as an original sponsor.
She is hereby added.
Thank you. I stand here today as an Afro-Latina who claims her Black roots. While simply being able to stand here and say that is a sign of the progress that we have made in the city as a country that we have made, it goes to show how much we have to fight just to get our foot in the door. There is work, hard work, and heart work that needs to be done to repair the economic, social, and political status of descendants of slaves in Boston. That is why today we are filing a hearing order to begin exploring what reparations would look like in the city of Boston. We know the why. The average net worth of a Black family in Boston is only $8 compared to nearly $250 for a white family. In Boston, home ownership rates for Black families is nearly half of that of white families. From redlining to the busing era, the economic inequities in our system can all be traced back to America's original sin, slavery. We know the why, but as for the how, that is the subject of this hearing order. For those who do not know, reparations are a form of transitional justice. It could be so much more than just a check in the mail. Reparations could be compensation, yes, but they can also take place in a form of providing care and services to descendants of slaves as well as issuing public apologies. So far, 2 cities across the United States have committed to exploring reparations for their Black residents. Perhaps one of the most important parts of the reparations process is verifying facts. Our office has been fortunate enough to work with Tanisha Sullivan from the NAACP, whose work on this issue is incredibly inspiring. She has pointed out that one of the biggest hurdles to reparations is that Boston has not come fully to terms with our role in the slave trade. We need a common and agreed upon narrative to understand what hurt the city of Boston has caused so that we can determine how to address that pain. This is how, and this is what this hearing order seeks to find out. We would like not to be here talking about this today oh my Lord, I cannot read English today. We would not be here talking about this today if it were not for the advocates like Tanisha, pushing the city to come to terms with its past so that we could move forward to a more just and caring future. We hope to celebrate the history of our liberation by committing to finishing the work that we started centuries ago. Thank you to the advocates and to Councilor Bach for working alongside us on this issue.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. The chair now recognizes the district council from Beacon Hill. Councilor Bach, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, and thank you, Councilor Mejia, for inviting me to join you on this, and to the NAACP for all of their work. I think folks know that I'm a historian. I'm actually an American historian by training in the 20th and 21st century, but I'm just far enough along you can start doing a little 21st century history. But the thing that you learn in that line of work is that you really can't do any American 20th and 21st century history without knowing your American 19th and 18th century history. And a major central reason for that is because of the enduring impact that, as Councilor Mejia said, the original sin of slavery continues to have on this country. And that's something that we have doubled down on, unfortunately, again and again with government programs. It's also something that has shaped many non-governmental aspects of our life. This is an old city. We are proud of its history. There is not an endowment of an august institution in this city that existed prior to 1865 that was not built upon the backs of slaves. There is not. And that is a thing that if you do any of the historical work on the receipts, it stops striking you as a shock and it starts to become a commonplace. And I think that to Councilor Mejia's point, we don't necessarily reckon with that. And some of that is because we don't want to expunge all the good things that have come for us in our culture and even for Black folks in the city of Boston out of some of these institutions and out of our own governmental history. But I think the word at the root of reparations is really important, right? That word is repair. And you can't repair something that you don't recognize as broken. And so, I think the opportunity to kind of look at that history and then say, what would be meaningful, what would be a motion towards repair, is really a long overdue conversation in our society. So I'm grateful again to Councilor Mejia for inviting me into it, and looking forward to having this conversation with all of you, with Boston's Black community, and frankly with the whole community of all Bostonians. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Bach. The chair now recognizes the district council from East Boston. Councilor Edwards, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I want to congratulate and thank the maker for her leadership in this conversation, the co-sponsors actually in this. And I wanted to not only add my name, but also add to this conversation that, we oftentimes, we would love nothing more than to say what happened is behind us, because we can look at success. We can look at myself, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Ayanna Pressley, or former Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, excuse me, and you can see successes. You can see, what you see, however, is resilience. What you see is brilliance, but what you don't understand is that is not an example of us accomplishing and finishing the overall goal towards justice. The fact that there are people making it doesn't mean that the system doesn't need to be reformed and analyzed and reanalyzed. The fact that we have had greater injury, as in slavery was a horrible, horrific institution, doesn't mean its tentacles do not reinvent themselves and come through our criminal justice system or through the way that we have segregated through our housing. The fact of the matter is the conversation about reparations is holding up a mirror to ourselves as a community and saying not only where the injury was, but how it continues, and we're honest about it, and how our hands, and I include all colors of all hands and all institutional bodies, maintain that system. We do. We must acknowledge that in order to not just repair, but to completely overhaul and reform. And so I say this because I think this is an exciting conversation to have. And as Councillor Campbell noted to me recently, when we have those conversations about race, about deep pain, at the granular level that we do in Charlestown, you will find that people come with the most creative, open-hearted solutions. It's when we refuse to acknowledge someone else's pain, we refuse to acknowledge that there is an issue that continues, we just want to move on from this moment, that we get ourselves in trouble. So we must hold ourselves accountable, we must be transparent in all that we do, and acknowledge where we have made mistakes. So I'm excited to dive in, I'm excited to have this conversation. I look forward to maybe this conversation being more regular as a body, that we constantly and never walk away from the moment to analyze how we maintain and continue systems that are unjust. So I look forward to this. Thank you to the makers.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Chair now recognizes the District Councillor from Hyde Park, Councillor Arroyo. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the makers, both for the courage of coming forward with this piece of legislation, but also understanding the necessity to have these kinds of tough conversations and to move forward on things like this. I think it's appropriate and important to understand that these aren't handouts. When we talk about reparation, what we're talking about is 400 years of unpaid labor, murder, rape, the separation of parents from their children, parents from one another, siblings from one another, the destruction of families, and to quantify that over a 400-year period in time, to then follow that with the impact of race and structure that came from enslaving human beings and creating a racial case system that then was reflected in things like the Jim Crow laws, the GI Bill and who had access and who didn't, the redlining of streets here in Boston. When we talk about the impact of slavery, this isn't a South issue versus a North issue. We understand that the ships that made this a profitable state, the shipping industry that made this a profitable state, were taking slaves to the South, taking the goods that they made, bringing them to the North, to our factories in Lowell. And that's the kind of stuff that is wrapped up in the fabric of this country, and sometimes is very difficult, I think, for us to have very honest conversations about what the impacts of that are and why certain business magnates were able to accumulate the wealth they were able to have, invest in the kinds of things they were able to invest in, and create trickle-down impacts in their own family of generational wealth that sees itself bear out today in the disparities that we see, like having families, black families' net worths in Boston be $8. That doesn't happen without these organized structural issues that have accumulated over 500 years. And I think the first thing I want to make sure is very clear is that I support the idea of reparations. I think whether that takes place in a financial way or not, because that's justice. And right now, we live in a constant state of injustice because we have not remedied that issue. And so I look forward to having a conversation about how we, as Bostonians, as elected members, as people who are stewards of municipal ordinance, can look at ways in which Boston can lead on this front. And I thank the makers for making sure that we have these kinds of conversations. Thank you for the indulgence, Mr. Chair.
Of course. Thank you, Councillor Royal. Chair now recognizes the District Councillor from Mattapan, Councillor Campbell. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and Mr. President, and thank you to the makers for bringing forth this hearing order. I won't belabor the point. I think everyone spoke to it quite well. I just wanted to lift up the fact that when I filed the Truth and Reconciliation Commission hearing order, we haven't had that conversation just yet, but we will. I engage a lot of folks who've been doing this work around truth and reconciliation across the country and across the world. And not only will I say it's necessary and required, and reparations is frankly one piece of that. There's a whole bunch of solutions to the racial justice issues in this country, or injustice in this country. But there's also a deep sense by the experts, and we're blessed in the city of Boston to have international experts who have been doing this work around truth and reconciliation for a really long time, who do not think this is possible in the city of Boston. So I am really excited that there is an appetite amongst this body to not only have the conversation to really get to the truth part, but to really then get to the second part, which is what does restorative justice solutions look like? What does restorative justice changes in our legislative policies and budget conversations look like? What does inclusion look like? But it was disheartening when even putting together that hearing order on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which is designed to exist forever, to start the conversation to really dive into the truth part, because you can't get to the reparations part if you can't get to the truth part, which is what Councilor Mejia was speaking to. But I can't stress enough how there is still such the pain and trauma in communities of color by folks who have been doing this work in Ireland and different places who do not think it is possible in the city of Boston. So I'm really proud of this body. I'm a little bit emotional because it really is exciting that we are taking the lead on a whole host of fronts to really set the stage of what's possible in the city of Boston in this moment in time. And I'm proud to work with each and every one of you. It's going to take all of us exercising leadership, coming out of our comfort zones to have these difficult conversations, because it triggers a whole bunch of emotion and trauma. I think it's on full display in some of the conversations related to our school committee right now. And so I just want to lift that up. I look forward to working and thinking about how the Truth and Reconciliation Commission hearing order could work in partnership with this. But that truth part is significant. And there is a sense of denial in many spaces, but there's also this sense that it can't happen in the city of Boston. I'm a woman of faith, I'm an optimist, hope, all that, joy, you name it. So I know it can. If we can lead with respect to creating institutions that have led the way to abolish slavery, to end monarchies, right? If we can do all that, we should be able to do this in this moment in time, particularly against the backdrop of George Floyd's murder, COVID-19 devastating all of us, especially communities of color, and when thinking about what we want for our children in the next generation in the city of Boston. We can be the first, particularly on these issues, more expansive and broader than Illinois, than San Francisco, and I'm excited about the possibility. And I'm really grateful today in this moment in time to all of my colleagues for the words that were shared on how we make this happen in the city of Boston. So thank you. A little emotional, but thank you. Add my name, and thank you to the makers.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Any further discussion on docket 0734? Seeing no takers, would any councillors wish to add their name? Madam Clerk, please add Councillor Arroyo, Councillor Baker, Councillor Braden, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Asabi-George, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Flynn, Councillor Wu. Please add the chair's name. And docket 0734 will be referred to the Committee on Civil Rights. Madam Clerk, please read docket 0735.
Thank you. 0735, Councilor Asabi-George offered the following order for hearing regarding the reopening plan for city operations.
Chair now recognizes the at-large council from Dorchester, Councillor Anissa Asabi-George. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It was recently announced that we will require City Hall employees to return to work full-time in person in just a matter of weeks. Although I'm excited for City Hall to fully reopen, I believe this action does not take into account the realities of our working families. Finding affordable childcare while working was hard enough before the pandemic. Then, we know seats in neighborhoods at licensed early education and child care centers are also limited. And with over a third of children under the age of 5 without permanent placement. Providers are largely women of color who work at operations with low wages and shoestring budgets. During this pandemic, we saw child care needs burdening our working families even further, with women leaving the workforce altogether to care for family members and child care programs shuttering and shutting down permanently. Though facilities are beginning to reopen, the Massachusetts Department of Early Education and Care has reported that child care providers have not yet reopened at the same pre-pandemic levels of operation. Solving the child care crisis is an equity issue on many levels and a critical investment in the well-being of our families and youngest residents. I'm asking for a hearing to discuss child care services or flexible work arrangements for city workers so that we can reopen City Hall in a reasonable way for our staff and their families. Our city employees continue to show up day after day for our city and its residents throughout the pandemic. City Hall must take this opportunity to make life a little bit easier for our workers with families. The pandemic gave us concrete evidence of the importance of a strong child care infrastructure for our economy and for our working families. City Hall must lead by example. We must show that it's possible to plan with our families in mind, to provide child care either on site or provide enough flexibility to retain employees with families. We must learn from the needs this pandemic exposed and to do things differently as we reopen. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Sabi-George. Any further discussion on docket 0735? The chair now recognizes the District Council for Mattapan. Councillor Campbell, the floor is yours.
Thank you, I'm composed. Appreciate that. But I just want to thank the maker for bringing forth this hearing order. Just during this meeting, got an email and continue to from a city employee who is really concerned about returning, who is struggling to be able to get childcare for her children. And frankly, as a mom of 2 boys, I'm dealing with the same scenario where we have a child care provider who's incredible, who's still part-time, and probably won't go back to being full-time until the fall. So we really need to think about how we offer flexibility, hybrid model to our city employees who have been working really hard, and this notion that some city employees who are hybrid, working in person or even from home while managing whatever they have going on there, that they're not working as hard as someone who's in person is ridiculous. We know that there are a lot of city employees right now who are working remotely, returning calls. I check my own emails, returning emails, responding to constituents with respect to evictions, housing instability, unemployment, COVID, of course, a whole host of concerns. So I just wanted to say, not only add my name to the conversation, but lift up that this is a real stressful time for many who are trying to figure out how they're going to make this work. And right now, there are no solutions that are immediately available to them. So we owe it to them to have a sense of flexibility and to support them during this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Campbell. The chair now recognizes the District Council from East Boston. Councillor Edwards, the floor is yours.
I want to thank the maker for her leadership, and I just want to also thank all of the city hall workers, especially those parents. So just outright, I think we acknowledge the amount of work that they've done. Not only my colleagues who are parents here on this body, but there are a lot of people who are struggling to get back to life. And so I just want to acknowledge those city hall workers and all workers in the city of Boston for getting back. But I also want to say, if we as the city of Boston don't provide the model for how to recover and treat families and treat workers with dignity, then who are we, especially this body, to ask that of the private market in any way, shape, or form? Who are we to push out one more ordinance saying they should do something, or one more resolution to say to stand with workers, if we ourselves are not providing that model? If we ourselves, who have shut down a lot of these industries, slowed down a lot of people's abilities to work and make money and to have access to childcare, we did that for public health and safety. We did that. I don't regret that. But if we are the ones leading in that way, then we must be the guiding light to show them how to come back, how to thrive, how to survive, and how to be the best that they can be. Especially because we're doing it with their tax dollars. That went up. So all I'm saying is, let's be the model, and let's provide that guiding light. We are looking for that, and I really want to again commend the maker for this conversation. I look forward to it. I think it's not just childcare. It's about how we choose to treat people coming back out of a pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. The chair now recognizes the District Councillor from South Boston. Councillor Flynn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to thank and acknowledge Councillor Sabi-George for this important resolution in support of the Child Care Center. There's nothing better than coming into City Hall than seeing parents taking their children into the Child Care Center as the parent goes off to work. Kind of makes your day when you see that. So we're fortunate in the city to have such a facility. It plays a critical role in the lives of so many families. Dedicated city city workers, many of them don't receive great pay and underappreciated at times, but we know the value of their work. They work exceptionally hard for the residents of our city. They might be teachers, they might be public works guys, they might be secretaries, or regardless of what their occupation is, they love the city and they give everything they can to make the city better for everybody. And if we had to increase taxes to pay for the child care center, that's something I would support. It's as we talk about the budget being a reflection of our values, if we're not able to open up the child care center downstairs, it says a lot about our city, in my opinion. So it's critical that that facility stay open, play a critical role in, in helping working families across our city. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Any further discussion on docket 0735? I would simply add that when I wrote the reopening rules for the council, I specifically allowed for allowances that would have flexibility and also a hybrid approach. And admittedly, we are a much smaller body, but I'd be happy to, share sort of the thought process behind that at the hearing, because I think the times certainly demand it. Seeing no more speakers, would anyone like to add their name to docket 0735? Madam Clerk, please add Councillor Arroyo, Councillor Baker, Councillor Bach, Councillor Braden, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Flynn, Councillor Mejia, and Councillor Wu, as well as the Chair. Docket 0735 will be referred to the Committee on Boston's COVID-19 Recovery. Madam Clerk, please read docket 0736.
Docket 0736, Councilors Braden and Mejia offer the following resolution recognizing June as LGBTQIA and Pride Month.
Thank you very much. The Chair now recognizes the District Councillor from Alston Brighton. Councillor Braden, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I just want to share a little personal story. I came to Boston on July 5th, 1995. So my first Pride was in June 1996. And I was staying with roommates, and they took me to my first Pride, and I went to the interfaith service at Old South and walked in, sat down, and proceeded to cry for the next hour because I'd never been in a place of worship that actually saw me and recognized me as a lesbian, as a member of the gay and lesbian community and LGBT community. And then I walked out the door of the church into the bright sunshine on Boylston Street, and there was the Mayor of Boston with a police colour guard, police officers, LGBT police officers with a police collar guard, and I thought I'd landed on another planet because I came from Northern Ireland, where in the Pride Parade people were not able to show their face because they might be recognised, they might lose their job, somebody might, if they were teachers or in public service, there was a very great chance that they would lose their jobs. Northern Ireland has just only recently agreed to have equal marriage, and it happened just by a political parliamentary manoeuvre due to the dysfunction of their system over there. So I'm really, really proud to stand here as the first openly lesbian member of this body, and to say, let's celebrate Pride, and let's remember all the great sacrifices that folks have made to get us here, and all the great gains that we have made, especially here in Massachusetts. I also want to recognize your role in working with in the equal marriage fight and all the struggles that that has gotten us here. Let's celebrate the wonderful community, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex and asexual and allied community. The alphabet is expanding exponentially since I got here, so I sometimes struggle with all the letters, but we keep going. It's wonderful. We must remember how this all started. Like, Pride started with a riot, a civil disturbance at the Stonewall Inn, where black and brown transgender activists, Marsha Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, protested and rioted in June of 1969 following a law enforcement raid on the Stonewall Inn. That's where it all started. And, you know, we've made some incredible gains, but we have to also recognize that so many of our community, especially our black and brown brothers and sisters, are subject to, and our transgender community are subject to violence and death in some cases, murdered because of who they are. So I want to commit myself and ask you all to recommit yourselves to continuing this fight to raise up and recognize the humanity of our brothers and sisters, but also to celebrate who they really are and to ensure that they have equal protection and that they're able to live, love and thrive in this community, in our city and in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I'm a stickler for the rules, but I'm going to bend them right now because that deserves a round of applause.
Thank you.
Very proud to call you a friend, Liz. Well said. Chair now recognizes the co-sponsor, the at-large councillor from Dorchester, Councillor Julia Mejia. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to Councillor Braden for allowing us to co-sponsor this resolution. I do want to issue a slight trigger warning for people listening in, because I'd like to start by reading into the record the names of the transgender and gender non-conforming individuals we have lost this year across the country. Jahaira de lo Alto, Tiana Alexandra, Samuel Damien, Biana Banks, Dominique Jackson, 50 Fans, Alexis Braxton, China Carrillo, JJ Bright, Jasmine Candy, Jenna Franks, Diamond Sanders, Rihanna Baraldo, Ethan Evans, Dominique Lucius, Jada Peterson, Remy Fennell, Tiara Banks, Natalia Sumut, Tiffany Thomas, Iris Santos, Kerry Washington, Whispering Wind Bear Spirit, Sophia Vasquez, Danny Henson, Serenity Hollis, Thomas Hardman, Oliver Taylor, and Haven Bailey. I know Pride Month is meant to be a time for celebration, but we cannot forget that pride is also an act of resistance, and that every day the simple act of resisting has cost people their lives. As a council, we should be focusing our efforts this month and every month on what we can do to make our city and our community a place where everyone is welcome and able to live their lives without fear. It is that job that we have 24/7, 365 days a year. I encourage everyone listening to donate and support organizations that continue to provide support services like the Transgender Emergency Fund, and to work in the spirit of Pride Month. And for all of those mentioned above, I urge you all to pass this resolution. And, you know, I had a really good conversation with my director of policy. As you know, we have several members of the LGBT community who work for us. And it was a heart-to-heart, because we're always like picking and choosing what issues we're gonna fight for. And it always often seems like the LGBTQ gets siloed. And this is the month we're gonna talk about it. Or they don't belong in the housing conversation. And what we need to do as a council is push ourselves to look at the intersectionality of what it looks like when you are a person who's navigating multiple issues and identities, and creating space for all of that to come into whatever space you're walking into. And I think that I just want to give a shout out to Jacob de Blakecourt for pushing me as a city councilor to recognize how important it is for us to stand up and not segment LGBTQ to just LGBTQ issues. LGBTQ issues live in every space, and it's our responsibility to uplift them. I gave him great examples of when Councilor Edwards did that. When you read a resolution, I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing that because you're going to call me out for calling people out, but it basically, you talked about our veterans, right? We find ways to include those voices, but I think that we need to be more intentional and deliberate about making sure that the intersectionality does not get lost. So just wanted to say that. And thank you to Jacob for holding me accountable to that.
Thank you, Councillor Mejia. Any further discussion on docket 0736? Would any councillors wish to add their name? Madam Clerk, please add Councillor Arroyo, Councillor Baker, Councillor Bach, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Saiby George, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Flynn, Councillor Wu. Please add the chair's name. And Councillors Braden and Mejia seek suspension of the rules and adoption of docket 0736. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. It's quite all right. It is a unanimous yea vote. Docket 0736 has passed. Thank you and congratulations. Madam Clerk, would you now please read docket 0737?
Docket 0737, Councilors Arroyo and Mejia offer the following resolution recognizing June as Caribbean American Heritage Month in the City of Boston.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The chair now recognizes the District Councillor from Hyde Park, Councillor Arroyo. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And since 2006, nationally, June has been recognized as Caribbean American Month. And I actually am Caribbean American. My family comes from Puerto Rico, and I'm very proud of that. But we've had many notable folks from Caribbean American nations who have really impacted deeply the country and the city that we live in today. For instance, some of my childhood hero, Roberto Clemente, I wanted to be like him until I realized that I could not throw a baseball from right field to third base nearly as well. And so there's folks like him, Jean-Michael Basquiat, an artist who is not properly appreciated in this time, Audre Lorde, Malcolm X, who is a Boston, frankly, a Boston legend. And so these are folks who have irrevocably changed the fabric of their chosen area and their chosen space in American culture. And so it's an honor to honor them and honor other Caribbean American residents of this city during this month who have also done so much to increase the aspects of living in Boston that we enjoy so much, whether it's arts, culture, whether it's business, whether it's the food that they bring. Shout out to one Jamaican restaurant in my district. Things like that that really increase the joy and the fabric of being from Boston and really being proud to be a Bostonian. So much of that comes from the diversity that we have, and not least of which is our Caribbean American residents. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Julia Mejia for co-sponsoring, and I should have done this at the beginning, but I'd like to suspend the rules and add Councillor Campbell. Sorry, it's been a long day.
Not at all. Seeing no objection to the suspension of Rule 12, Councillor Campbell is hereby added.
Thank you so much. And so thank you to Councillor Mejia and Councillor Campbell for joining on to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arroyo. The chair now recognizes the at-large council from Dorchester, Councillor Mejia. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to Councilor Arroyo for co-sponsoring this resolution. Celebrating Caribbean American Heritage Month. The last 2 years has been incredibly hard as a result of COVID, but despite the pandemic preventing us from celebrating with a parade, it hasn't stopped us from celebrating our pride in our community. But celebrating Caribbean American Heritage Month is more than just celebrating our resilience through challenging times. It is also about celebrating our abundance of joy, spirit, wisdom, and soul, and family. And you know, we can be loud. I also want to take a moment to thank the amazing Caribbean organizations in the city who are committing themselves every day to the work of making our city a more welcoming space. From Shirley Chillingsford, who everybody knows, to the Authentic Caribbean Foundation, Association of Women, Haitian Women, Haitian Americans United, SEIU 509, and so many more. Thank you for your service and for all your efforts in our city. We are grateful to each and every one of you, and we cannot wait to be able to celebrate with you in person the way we have in the past. In celebration of this community, I urge all of you to vote in favor of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Chair now recognizes the District Councillor from Mattapan, Councillor Campbell. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to Councilors Arroyo and Mejia for the partnership. And thank you also to the Caribbean organizations recently organized the flag raising, and Andrew for his leadership and continued leadership, someone who also, I think, gets the intersectionality piece that you talked about. I also just want to lift up the fact that we haven't met in person. There's been a lot of great remote Zoom meetings and opportunities still to get together created by these organizations that are often under-resourced. In the midst of COVID, Ms. Shillingford and so many others mobilized community to respond to food insecurity, not just for folks obviously in the Caribbean community, but across the entire city of Boston. Priests and pastors and those in the clergy community who are also, of course, a part of the Caribbean community did the same thing. They continue to be a big and rich part of the economic vitality of the city of Boston, the cultural activities in every neighborhood, frankly, in the city of Boston. So let's continue to uplift them. Let's continue to value them, not just on sort of this month or this day, but every day. And I'm actually blessed to represent a district that has various countries represented from this diaspora. My grandfather came from Jamaica, so I get a lot of residents who call me and want to talk about that. But there is a rich and robust culture in this city that has existed here for generations, where the stories of these residents are often untold. And they have made this city great. So what does it mean for us as a city to lift this up, but also to share that story? I am frequently saying we are not just The Departed or Good Will Hunting. Don't get me wrong, I think we've all seen those movies, but there are rich stories, and I think there's some recent campaigns that are looking to highlight the contributions of these communities. So how do we continue to uplift that? So thank you, Councilor Arroyo and Councilor Mejia, and thank you to the residents and organizations on the ground for the work they do every day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Councillor Campbell. Chair now recognizes the District Councillor from South Boston, Councillor Flynn. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the sponsors that sponsor this important resolution recognizing Caribbean Americans. I just wanted to highlight the incredible contributions that our Puerto Rican veterans have made to our country. They get often underlooked and underappreciated, but I know the incredible work that they sacrifice and service that they've done, as this body knows their contributions as well, because we're all close with a lot of them at the Puerto Rican Veterans Memorial in the South End. So I just wanted to highlight the service and sacrifice of them. And as Councilor Arroyo mentioned, one of my heroes too was Roberto Clemente, who was killed delivering humanitarian relief efforts while he was in the United States military as well. So not only are they great athletes and great veterans, but they're great humanitarian people that really care about society and care about the world. So just want to say I'm glad to be part of this resolution. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Any further discussion on docket 0737? Seeing none, would any councillors wish to add their name? Madam Clerk, please add Councillors Baker, Councillor Bach, Councillor Braden, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Saiby George, Councillor Flaherty, I believe Councillor Flynn, Councillor Wu. Please add the chair's name as well. And Councillors Arroyo, Mejia, and Campbell seek suspension of the rules and adoption of docket 0737. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0737 has passed. Chair recognizes the District Council from East Boston. Councillor Edwards, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I know, my colleagues, I apologize, this has been a long meeting, but I do want to rise to, I have a motion to amend the rules.
Okay, there is a motion to amend the rules. Is there a second? Second. Okay, please proceed.
Thank you very much. I regret in terms of the timing. I wish I had done this earlier in other conversations, as we have been throughout this entire period of transition, filling in gaps within our rules to help make sure that we are completely accountable, transparent, and consistent with how our body runs. So this is an attempt to be just that, consistent, to be transparent, and to be accountable. I have some sample language so that I can pass around, or if someone could help me pass this around to the body.
City Messenger Ron Cobb, thank
Sorry.
you.
You're such a mom.
Quite all right.
It did? Okay. Thank you very much. Well, there's some physical copies. But essentially what I'd like to do is to amend Rule 3 that allows for us to be transparent with the power that we already have, which is, as an elected body, to select the leaders that we have. That's a power that we already have, but also to choose when we no longer want those leaders to lead us. It's about consistency. Currently, with 2/3 majority, the city council president can remove any one of us And I'm proposing like powers for us when it comes to the city council president, that with 2/3 majority, we could do the same. And finally, it's about accountability. We are the body that made the city council president and make the city council president yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We therefore the only body that can hold the city council president accountable. And in as much as the president's power grows, so must the president's accountability. So I am proposing that we amend the rules to allow for this amount of consistency, transparency, and accountability to be in the rules. I propose that to my body, or to my counselors, my fellow counselors. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a motion before. This is obviously the time for discussion, so if you... The chair recognizes the at-large counselor from Dorchester, Counselor Mejia. I'll do it.
No, I'd like to have a better understanding of what is happening right now and what I'm going to be voting. If I'm going to be voting on something, I need some more understanding of it. That's all.
Okay. Well, we'll get back to the maker. I'm going to allow for discussion now, and then I think the maker will perhaps go through what she had just said again and maybe answer some questions you may have. But now the chair recognizes the district councilor from Hyde Park, Councilor Royal. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question with this change is that the language specifically included, which I guess if you're watching this at home, you don't get to see that, is that it says, except that by a vote of 2/3 of the members present, but in no case by less than a simple majority of the membership, the council may declare the role vacant and conduct a new election for council president, but it doesn't give a reason. And if I understand the reason in which the council can, with a 2/3 vote, remove somebody from the body, it's Rule 40. I believe it's 40A. And it requires a conviction in a felony or a violation of a state law. And the last time this body did so was in the case of, and the only time to my knowledge, was in the case of Councilor Turner, and it was found that they did not actually have the power by the court system, and there was a settlement paid out to that because it was found that the council did not have the ability to remove a duly elected officer. And I don't see in this proposed language a reason provided for why such a vote could be conducted. It doesn't say specifically in the case of, say, a federal conviction or the violation of a state law. It just says that at any time, for any reason, on a whim, the council could try to remove a president who they've already elected. I actually disagree with that, and I would like to know from the maker perhaps why the belief that we shouldn't quantify under what terms we remove a council president, which is different than removing a sitting city councilor. But the rule that was referred to for removing a sitting city councilor requires literally a conviction of a federal crime or a violation of state law. And so I just want to kind of get a clearer picture of why this changed and why now. But I would be a no on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Royal. Councilor, just one second, just to answer the question she was invoked. Did you want to speak to that, Councilor?
I can wait for
Okay,
her
thank you.
question.
The chair recognizes the at-large councilor from Dorchester, Councilor Mejia.
Hi, yes, for all those who are tuning in, we're all learning together here. I just want to be clear. This is something that we're going to pass so that we can remove you as the president as well as a city councilor.
No, that's,
That's what he's
I'll
shaking his
defer.
head to. No?
I will
just need-
no, that's fine. Through you
somebody.
can ask
I
the
just
question.
need to know
Through the
what's
chair,
with
Councilor
this.
Edwards wants to address some of the concerns that were brought up by Councilors Arroyo and Councilor Mejia. Councilor Edwards, the floor is yours.
Sure. So we have a question of timing, of standards, and of who this applies to. It applies to the city council president that we elect. So our city council president is acting Mayor Janey. It applies to the city council president. She happens to also be the acting mayor now, but this would be a rules change. It would apply to all city council presidents regardless of what they become. So just want to answer that. And in terms of timing and standards, in terms of the standards, you are correct, Councilor Arroyo. I did not put in a specific language because it's the 13 of us that elect somebody versus the thousands of people that elect each of us to be in this seat. So the standard should be higher to remove any of us from the seat, especially if it's the 13 of us going to vote for it. So I think it's a little different, and I think that's also why I chose 2/3, because that is consistent with that language, that it shouldn't be that easy on a whim for anybody that we've elected to then, you know, with a simple majority, which could have been the standard, to be just removed. We want the city council president to have a certain amount of autonomy. And then in terms of timing, I said it when I opened my remarks, I regret not doing this earlier. I think when we had the conversation about Rule 51 and we were discussing all the special, I really regret that. I think this should have been happening there, but I don't want to do it after or if there's a back and forth over something larger, like a $3 billion budget. Things are going well. We've gotten the charter amendment through. We've gotten, I think we're going to get the East Boston, the new trust through. We are working together well, and I think it's when those moments, when we have that we should put in standards of accountability so that it's not seen as retaliatory.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Chair recognizes the district council from Dorchester, Councilor Baker. The floor is yours.
So rule change, we're not looking to remove anyone now. This is just a rule change here that would give us the ability, if there were an offense, that we could have this discussion. Would that be correct?
The chair recognizes the district council from East
And
Boston.
the offense could be
No.
whatever,
It doesn't have to be anything. You are correct. It's just a rule change.
okay.
Nothing else is happening. That's it.
Okay, can I ask another question through the chair?
Chair recognizes the
so-
district council from Dorchester.
So we have the rule change, something happens, whatever, we decide that we remove that chair who's the council president, happens to be the mayor right now. So that person would need to step down from mayor, and then would we elect a new president?
You would. It does say that in the
And then
rules.
would that president, whoever, become the mayor?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Chair recognizes the district councilor from Hyde Park, Councilor Royal. The floor is yours.
Yeah, Councilor Baker actually sort of hit the nail on the head with what I was trying to figure out, which is essentially, you know, we can say it's not on a whim, we can say what it is, but if you end up with, for any reason or no reason at all, removing a city council president by a 2/3 majority when they happen to already be, say, the acting mayor, that to me seems like an irresponsible decision to be making on the fly this way. And I would just say that I am not necessarily opposed to, in the future, looking at how we do this for certain codes of conduct or things like that. I think that's appropriate. But in an instance like this, where we're midstream, we're almost to the end of I think we're very near a new election, and essentially next January we would create new rules and we would have the ability to deal with all these things. I just don't think it makes sense to do this right this second under the conditions that we're in right now. And I'm not certain that I would ever agree with this kind of language where it just doesn't seem responsible to me that we're not creating, say, codes of conduct, and this could instead, say, come down to disagreements or political machinations. And so I would still be a no at the moment, but Councilor Baker's questions actually clarified what I was going to ask. So thank you to Councilor Baker, and thank you to Councilor Edwards for answering.
Thank you, Councilor Royal. Any further discussion on the motion that's been properly before us and seconded? Seeing none, Councilor Edwards, seconded by Councilor Braden, has a motion that will amend Rule 3, which is properly before all of us, and we have the text.
Can I make a request?
The chair recognizes the district council from Dorchester.
So I've been here for almost 10 years. I'll stand up. I'll be here for 10 years. And so all of the controversial votes start right here. It's been me first or me second my entire career. I make a request we start on that side of the room. That's your call. I would just, you know what I'm saying? This is a controversial thing. I got to jump out front, you know, so.
Okay.
Or do it by district, or. Sorry to.
The chair, okay, thank you. Request duly noted, Councilor Baker. The chair recognizes Councilor Bach.
No, it's a no.
Just on the point of order, also being alphabetically early and having checked this out, alphabetical order for roll call is actually in the city charter.
Okay.
All
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bach. And thank you, Councillor Flaherty, our other historian who's nodding in agreement. Okay, so appreciate the request, appreciate the clarification on the city charter. This roll call will, I mean, we could do a voice vote, but I will ask for a roll call. It will be done alphabetically, and seeing no further discussion on the amendment to Rule 3 that is properly before us and seconded, the clerk will call the roll on accepting it. A yay or a yes vote means you accept it. A no or a nay vote means you reject it.
On Councillor Edwards' motion, Councillor Arroyo.
No.
Councillor Arroyo, no. Councillor Baker.
Yes.
Councillor Baker, yes. Councillor Bach. Yes. Councillor Bach, yes. Councillor Braden.
Yes.
Councillor Braden, yes. Councillor Campbell.
Yes.
Councillor Campbell, yes. Councillor Edwards.
Yes.
Councillor Edwards, yes. Councillor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councillor Asabi George, yes. Councillor Flaherty. Yes. Councillor Flaherty, yes. Councillor Flynn. Yes. Councillor Flynn, yes. Councillor Mejia. Present. Councillor Mejia, present. Councillor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councillor O'Malley, yes. And Councillor Wu. Yes. Councillor Wu, yes. Excuse me, Mr. President, Councillor Edwards' motion has passed with 1 in the negative, 10, am I right? Wait a minute, 12.
Yep. You got it.
10 in the affirmative and 1 present.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk, and thank you, Councillor Edwards, and thank you all for that good debate. Moving on now to personnel orders. Madam Clerk, would you please place docket 0738 before us?
Thank you. Docket 0738, Councillor O'Malley for Councillor Asabi.
Chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0738. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. 738 has passed.
Docket 0739, Councillor O'Malley for Councillor Mejia.
Chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0739. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. 739 has passed.
Docket 0740, Councillor O'Malley for Councillor Mejia.
Chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0740. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed nay. The ayes have it. 0740 has passed.
Docket 0741, Councillor O'Malley for
Chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0741. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed nay. The ayes have it. The order is passed. Docket 0742.
Docket 0742, Councillor O'Malley for Councillor Roy.
Chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0742. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The order is passed.
Docket 0743, Councillor O'Malley for Councillor Flaherty.
Chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0743. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed nay. The ayes have it. 743 has passed.
Docket 0744, Councillor O'Malley for
Chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0744. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed nay. The ayes have it. The order has passed.
Docket 0745, Councillor O'Malley.
Chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0745. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed nay. The ayes have it. The order is passed.
Docket 0746, Councillor O'Malley.
Chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0746. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0746 has passed.
Docket 0747, Councillor O'Malley for Councillor Asabi George.
Chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0747. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0747 has passed. Thank you all. Late files next. We're moving on to late files. I'm informed by the clerk that there are 0 late file matters before us. So thank you. Well done, everybody. Now moving on to the green sheets. Anybody wishing to remove a matter from the green sheets may do so at this time. Seeing and hearing none, we will now go to the consent agenda. We're now, I've been informed by the clerk that there are, I'm sorry, Councillor Braden, did you want to pull something for the green sheets? Okay, we'll get to you in a second, announcements in a second. Consent agenda, there's 0 additions to the consent agenda. The chair moves for adoption of the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda has been adopted. Now moving on to announcements. The chair recognizes the district councillor from Alston Brighton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to pay tribute today to Leonard Lenny Kelleher of Alston. He passed away recently. He was 88 years old. He was a proud lifelong resident and remained active in his community in Alston right up until very recently. He's a well-known active member of the Alston Civic Association, and he was especially active as an advocate for the neighbourhood in response to Harvard University's redevelopment in the area. He loved his community and he really loved to be civically engaged. I was at his wake last week and his daughter said, you know, he used to go on vacation to Maine or somewhere and he'd get the local paper and they'd see a notice about a public meeting and say, can I go to that public meeting? I want to go see what's going on. So he was also a proud Korean War veteran and served in the US Navy in Japan and Korea. Above all, Lenny was a mentor and a friend. I got to know Lenny in the last 5 years or so through meeting him at community meetings. I always appreciated his great sense of humour, his knowledge of Alston and his advice. I wish to extend our condolences to the Kelleher family and to all his many family and friends, and to honour his service to our country and to our Alston community. And Lenny will be missed.
Thank you very much
Thank
for those
you.
beautiful words about Lenny Kelleher. The chair now recognizes the district councillor from Beacon Hill, Councillor Bach. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I rise on 2 points today, both of them Mission Hill related. The first is to mark the passing last week of Adeline Stallings, who was just a complete stalwart, visionary leader of the Mission Maine community. Ms. Stallings moved to Boston in 1970. She became a core of the Mission Maine Tenant Task Force, and she was really central in getting that community redeveloped and stabilized as the really successful and wonderful continuing public housing community that it is today, but with a mixed income component as well. She's somebody larger than life. I think many folks know I worked at the Housing Authority before this, and I worked for Billy McGonigal, and one of the things that I got from working for Billy was just an appreciation of these just like decades of tenant leadership that had gotten us to where we are in the city of Boston. And frankly, the more you look at the course and trajectory that public housing took in cities all over America, the more you notice that Boston's actually a bit of an exception. Unfortunately, from my mind, we did lose some units along the way, but we kept far more than almost any other city. And we really did it because of the leadership of women like Adeline Stallings, who was not afraid to fight with mayors and developers and councilors and really anybody who got in her way. And it was such an honor for me to get to know her a little bit through Bill in my work at the BHA and then as her counselor for this last year and a half. And we've already named the park in the center of Mission Maine after her for her 70th birthday, so we're gonna have to find something else. But she's just a legend, and we're really gonna miss her. She's been in ill health for a while, but still just around the community all the time and always taken an interest in how everything is going, and still putting me on the spot if anything wasn't going correctly. So just really wanted to honor her today, and also say for counselors who may know her and other folks watching at home that there will be a wake and service and repast on Monday, June 14th. So for anybody who wanted to come and join us, I know you'd be most welcome, and I think there will be quite a lot of us there to pay our respects. The other Mission Hill related thing that I wanted to say is that sadly for me, this is the last week in the office of my Director of Operations and Scheduling and Mission Hill Liaison, Henry Santana, who has just been a total rock of my office. He actually, not to speak too much of politics, but did field directing for my campaign back in 2019, so he's really been with me from the very beginning of this adventure. And Henry, we talk a lot about our staff and how they make us look good and how they do this like unsung work. Like Henry Santana has like personally delivered a whole bunch of laptops to kids at the Tobin School, and like bought groceries for families and checked in with people and kept me posted on everything going on in Mission Hill. And he ran an exemplary youth program for our office with a whole bunch of young people last year in the middle of the pandemic that was just like made up on the spot. And he is exactly the kind of person who loves the city, who loves Mission Hill fiercely, who the city needs. And I'm so excited as his boss and soon to be former boss, to watch everything that he does in the city. I'm so glad that today is the day that we're honoring Caribbean American Heritage Month, because Henry is also a proud Dominican. And somebody who counts both the Dominican Republic and Boston, Mission Hill specifically, Alice Taylor specifically, as home. And I just, I can't say enough good things about him. I can't express how much I'm going to miss him from my office. And so, Mr. President, with your indulgence, but recognizing that announcements are a little bit of a bend the rules time anyways, I would really just like to offer a round of applause for Henry Santana.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Councillor Bach. Thank you, Henry, for your service. All the best. Chair now recognizes the District Councillor from East Boston, Councillor Edwards. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I just want to remind everyone that we have Pride in Charlestown, and 3 years ago we kicked off a Pride celebration where we bring people together and we just tell our stories, and we talk about either folks who are talking about their coming out stories, or honestly how for the first time they're able to be proud of who they are in Charlestown. And it's a tough town in a beautiful way. We love hard, we also fight hard, but at the end of the day, it's a community, and I would love for you all to come tonight at Schraff's Building at 5 p.m. We'll be raising the Pride flag. It's a very beautiful, casual moment. We'll speak a little bit, then we all get in line, and each one of us pull that flag all the way to the top of the flagpole. And it's an emotional moment for a lot of people, so I hope you can come.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. Any further announcements? Seeing none, and we are quickly losing quorum, so I guess I should adjourn. But before I do, we will be adjourning in a number of really wonderful and just beloved Bostonians. So if you'll indulge me just to take a moment. For Councillor Arroyo and Tanetta M. Giovanni. For Councillors Arroyo and Campbell, Linda Struthers-Lyons. For Councillor Baker, Dominic Paolo, Patrick Bugga Joyce, and Catherine Long. For Councillor Bach, Adeline Stallings, excuse me. For Councillor Braden, Leonard W. Lenny Kelleher. For Councillors Campbell and Wu, Taran Shepard. And for Councillors Flynn, Flaherty, and Baker, Scott Collins. A moment of silence, please. The chair moves that when the council adjourns today, it does so in memory of the aforementioned individuals. We are scheduled to meet again, we are scheduled to meet again in the Ionella Chamber next Wednesday, June 16th at 12 noon. All in favor of adjournment, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The council is hereby adjourned.